Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 1 of the Steel News podcast. I'm Brendan McGrevy, your host, here with Jay, Steelers Loyalty. Now, Jay, the Steelers had a tough loss to the Colts last night, 30-13. What happened that game, Jay?
So what I saw was, first of all, I think the Steelers' run defense was getting gashed. That was a big thing that I saw. Um, I think there was a point in the second half where the Colts, they ran the ball 13 straight times on us,
Yeah,
and the defensive line didn't look good. I mean, yes, of course, the offense hasn't been good either. Trubisky wasn't great. Run game wasn't good. We're not able to feed Pickens the ball. But yeah, I think the run defense is something that not enough people were talking about, and that was a big weakness, I think.
absolutely. They were running it down our throat, like you said, 13 times in a row. And I think TJ Watt discussed it in the post game. He said, I think he got questioned, they kept running the ball. Were you guys just tired or did you not see it coming? And he was like, yeah, we were just tired, and they were worn out. The defense is on the field more than the offense most of the games. And, it's tough. The Colts played a really good game. Shout out, Gardner Minshew played a really good ball.
Hmm.
Zach Moss had a decent game as well. But yeah, no, the Steelers, they got beat up on defense, and it really sucks with the injuries. Cole Holcomb, who's been out. And then we lost,
Yeah,
Quan Alexander. And, there's been other key guys we're missing on defense. And, Minka got hurt again that game. And it seems like we can't catch a break with injuries.
yeah, the inside linebackers, I think we've had really bad luck with.
Yeah.
Holcomb, Kwan, and yeah, we're down to Michael Walker now. It's been tough. Yeah, I
It
think
has
the
been.
Steelers have had some of the worst luck at inside linebacker. Since Shazier got hurt, they haven't been able to find any stability at that position, really.
Yeah, it feels like every year it's a new name, new player there, and we get some decent guys, but I swear the injury bug at that position, man, it sucks for sure. But now we saw Mike Tomlin at the post game press conference, and he kind of offered the same perspective. He did take some accountability, but at the same time, it's kind of sounding like the same old Mike Tomlin post game. Is Tomlin on the hot seat, Jay? A lot of fans are calling for him to be removed. A lot of people think, get some new personnel inside to help him. What do you think?
I understand that. I do not think he's on the hot seat, but it's worth remembering. Yes, his contract is over after 2024, so the team could move on if they choose to. Or I think it would make more sense if they really want to move on from him, don't just fire him. I think you would trade him for some draft picks and get something for him. But no, I don't think he's on the hot seat right now. I understand like people are frustrated, but it also comes down to talent on the team. I think he's doing the most that he can with the roster that he has.
Absolutely. And it's tough, when you have Mitch Trubisky in at QB, and he was a former really high draft pick, for the Bears, and he just hasn't been able to produce. I think he had like 1 or 2 Pro Bowl seasons, and since then he's kind of just been, not the guy in the Steelers. He's like one of the highest paid backups in the league. I think it's like a 2-year, $8 million deal or something
Yeah,
like that. And he's just
yeah,
taking up cap space, and I think, the Steelers got to look to draft somebody at the QB position, at least for a backup, because Mitch is not getting it done. And I don't know why we threw Mason in at the end of the game rather than starting him earlier, maybe the second half of the game even. But coaching's been kind of questionable this year for sure.
yeah. I agree. I don't think it's a good contract that he's on. Like,
Yeah,
I know some fans might call for Rudolph, and I don't know who's better, Trubisky or Rudolph, but in my opinion, the drop off from Trubisky to Rudolph, it's just not worth the money they're paying, I think.
yeah. No, I'd rather just see Mason in there and get the same result for a cheaper contract than have Mitch, who's taking money away from other guys we could be signing, for some depth rather than, Mitch. He's not getting it done, and I was not impressed with his post game press conference. He kind of didn't really offer much answers, but what is he gonna say? After playing that bad, it's hard. You're upset, frustrated. The
Yeah,
locker
I
room even
mean,
too. So
yeah. I mean, they try to stay positive, I understand, People want to blame Tomlin, but he's got to stay positive, try and keep the team moving forward. There are still 3 more games. They're 7-7, right outside the playoff picture.
Yeah, I mean, anything could happen. I don't think, the state of this team right now, if we make the playoffs, I think I don't think we would win round one. I'd be surprised even if we made it. Even if we made the playoffs, I'd be surprised. But, this team has so much talent, and I feel like we're wasting away TJ's prime. We haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Tomlin's 8-9 in the playoffs. And Minka Fitzpatrick, one of the best safeties in football. TJ Watt, arguably one of the best defensive players in football we've seen. Already has 15 sacks on the season. And Cam Hayward too is the captain of this team. And he's been playing some good ball too. Obviously, we're having some struggles in the secondary, and especially we could not protect the middle of the field last night. It was
Yeah.
evident. There was a lot of Gardner Minshew slinging it and then running it right up the middle because our defense is tired. Being on the field all game. But it'll be interesting to see what the Steelers' game plan is for the next Saturday's game, because the necessary changes need to be made, as Mike Tomlin
hmm
said.
Yeah, we're hurting in the secondary for sure. I mean, we were basically out of safeties. I thought they might have to move Patrick Peterson there because, I mean, Mingo went down, Casey,
Yeah.
Trenton Thompson was hurt. And I think also, like, that contract that they're paying Trubisky, 8 million. I mean, that's money that could be used to maybe get someone as a free agent in the secondary.
I agree absolutely, and we were so thin on players at the safety position, with Terrell Edmonds. We dearly miss him, man. He was,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he's not Minka Fitzpatrick, level type of player, but he's still a reliable guy. And, we're hurting. And another guy, who's on the Lions, we're missing Cam Sutton, such a solid corner. And even Mike Hilton for the Bengals, man. I mean, I know he was on our team for a little while. I miss, those players, but I like
Yes.
Joey Porter Jr. I know he's had some, aggressive plays and getting fouls, but I think we hit gold with Joey Porter Jr. And I think, Broderick Jones has had some struggles, but I think giving him some time, I think he'll eventually be really solid for this team. But I'm still confused why Dan Moore's starting on that line. But he actually, he had that 1 week. I think he was rated by Pro Football Focus a 3.4 out of 100 or something like that. I think it was against the Browns, if I'm not mistaken. But the offensive line has been a struggle. But Mitch sometimes holds on to the ball too long. But it's because these receivers aren't getting open, man. You look at the coverage, and
hmm
these guys are like George Pickens sometimes getting double teamed, even triple teamed. There's like nothing down the field. These receivers have got to find ways to get open faster.
Yeah. I also was not happy with Pickens. Some of the plays, you could see he wasn't giving full effort.
Yeah.
I understand that the team is frustrated right now. It's frustrating, but to not give full effort on plays, which is what I saw when watching some of them. I would honestly think about um, maybe benching him for a game, which is crazy. I don't usually like to be the type of person to overreact, but if he's not giving full effort, it sends a message to the team too. And I think, I mean, you have Calvin Austin who could start.
Yeah. Then we have Calvin Austin, Deontay Johnson even was really clutch that game. I think it was like there was a couple like third and longs, and he saved us. He kept us some kind of hope in that game,
hmm
Um, and frustrations are brewing in Pittsburgh, but you got to keep that in check. George Pickens, that sends a bad tone if you have a bad attitude. How's the rest of the offense going to play? And Najee Harris has also been frustrated, and that's another conversation we could have. Should the Steelers still keep Najee Harris? I mean, Jalen Warren's running better behind that line as of right now.
So, yeah, next year, Najee's going to be on the last year of his contract, and so is Pat Freiermuth. So I think the Steelers are going to have to prioritize who they think is higher priority to re-sign between him and Freiermuth. I think those will be the two highest. And I think having Jalen Warren does give the Steelers some leverage when it comes to the contract negotiations.
I agree fully, and I think Pat Fryermuth, especially with the QB room we have now, is so much more important to the offense than Najee Harris because Jalen Warren can get the job done. Obviously, we'd have to find another guy who could be our third down back, but Warren is such a tough player, such a physical runner. I think he was 10 carries for 40 yards last game, but he's been solid for most of the year. And for being a first round pick, I have not been impressed with Harris, he's struggled, but obviously the offensive line hasn't been great. But at the same time, Jalen Warren went undrafted out of Oklahoma State, and he's still making, big runs, aggressive runs, and he's giving full effort, So I think it's kind of been disappointing what we've seen out of Najee Harris, unfortunately, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, some people are saying his vision hasn't been good. He's not seeing the field well. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, I think, where you're drafted, undrafted. I mean, it's who's going to produce on the field, really.
Absolutely, and that's what I like about the Steelers, I mean, sometimes it's frustrating, they're so like I feel like sometimes they're afraid to admit their mistakes and they want to stick with guys like, we rode with Canada for so long because they want to,
Hmm.
they're such a loyal organization, but at the same time, when you're not producing and Pittsburgh is very passionate about football, the Steel City, so much history, the 70s, and even the early 2000s with the Super Bowls, this team and means a lot to the city of Pittsburgh. And, the Yinsers care a lot about this team. And to see the effort that these guys have right now, these are not the Pittsburgh Steelers players we know. There's like I think like only on one hand I can count the guys I've seen give full effort, and TJ Watt definitely leading those guys, and Jalen Warren up there as well. Um, but yeah, this team, effort and attitude is everything. You lost a game, you lost 3 in a row, back-to-back losses to 2-win teams in the Cardinals and Patriots. And then the Colts are a better team, in that game. Even if we played good, I still could have seen us losing that game. But at the same time, if we had Kenny, I think, he would have hit Freiermuth on that pass and wouldn't have thrown it behind him like
Yeah.
Mitch did, right in the middle of the field. You have to make those throws. And Allen Robinson was wide open, I think, on the right side or left side is what the commentators were saying. And, Mitch's vision's just not there.
Yeah, yeah.
Super frustrating.
I
But
mean, maybe Pickett coming back will give the team a spark, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's been some rumors saying he could possibly come back next week. I think it's very unlikely, but he really wants to get back to playing because he doesn't turn the ball over. Say what you will about Kenny Pickett, that man does not
Hmm.
turn the ball over. He's very good at protecting the football. The 3-and-out drives aren't great, but that man can protect the football really well.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that maybe people were being a little ungrateful for. I mean, now that Trubisky's in, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, he had the ankle injury in college and he was out for like 20 some days. So, yeah, next week's kind of pushing it, but I mean, this team I think needs him.
Yeah, and we desperately need some answer at quarterback. And, talking about this offense, what's going on at center, man? Mason Cole, had a game. I think he had like 3 bad snaps. And, before Mason Cole, there was Kendrick Green, a guard we drafted to
Hmm.
play center for some reason. We're missing Pouncey a lot. Since he retired, we haven't had, a reliable guy at center. What should the Steelers do to address that, Jay?
So, I think there are two things. You either make a change now or you can wait until the off season. So, if they were to make a change now, I don't know. I think you'd have to consider putting James Daniels at center, and then Nate Herbig would slide into guard. But I think Daniels has been good, so I mean, you don't want to really ruin that chemistry on the offensive line that you have right now. So, and I don't think the Steelers like to make changes really either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're likely waiting until the offseason, I think, to draft a center early. I mean, drafting a quarterback early, I think that'll be up for debate among fans, but drafting a center early, I think, is something that must be done.
Yeah, no, and there's like a lot of good prospects. The Georgia center Cedric
Hmm.
Van Pran, I think or Prawn is how you say his name, would be a really good pick. Or I'm seeing a mock draft here from Steelers Wire. On the second round, they say we should draft Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. Even like getting a guy in the first or second round at center, and maybe, I mean, this draft has us getting Jaden Daniels in the first round. I really don't see the Steelers drafting a QB first round. I think they're going to stick with Pickett, but I do think third, fourth, maybe even second round, drafting somebody as a backup and cutting ties with Mitch because he's
Yeah,
overpaid and we can get a rookie for a cheaper contract. And, we're wasting money, but there's other guys we could be paying, and signing. And, there's free agents that are going to be coming up next year. I know I've heard Justin Fields' name brewing around Pittsburgh, even Kirk Cousins. I've heard a mixed bag about him. Do you think the Steelers should, draft maybe a QB in the draft, or should they look at for free agency to get some backup, or maybe even a potential starter over Kenny?
I guess it just depends on the opportunities that are available, but Kitty's still young. I think when you draft a guy, a quarterback, you got to be willing to give him a certain amount of time. Like, I know some quarterbacks like CJ Stroud or whoever, I mean, Steelers fans see that around the league and they just light it up right away.
Oh
But
yeah.
that can't really be the expectation. You have to be willing to give him time. So I think just support Pickett, give him a good offensive line because he's shown some good stuff too. He's shown the ability to be clutch. He's made throws. He's taken care of the football. So I'd continue to work with him. But I mean, yeah, again, it just depends on the opportunities that are there because you never want to pass it up if it's there. But I think more likely you're waiting until like the mid rounds of the draft to get a quarterback and replace Trubisky.
Yeah, no, I think a quarterback, if the Steelers do not draft a quarterback or get somebody in free agency, then it is considered a questionable offseason because you have to get somebody in there. I know we got Trace McSorley, off of I think it was the Patriots practice squad, former Raven, throw it on a dime, Trace McSorley, but
Yeah,
um it's unfortunate, man. I mean, this offense, it's inconsistent. It's a liability, and this defense, like I'd be so frustrated going on the field, knowing the offense is just going to go 3 and out and I'm going to be on the field for like 40 minutes a game because the offense can't keep the ball. And when they do, we're hitting the defenders with the ball. That's the only completions we're really getting, sometimes. And some of those drives are just really tough, and I think we really have to get the running game involved. And I think one of the most questionable calls, and this is why people are mad at Tomlin, why are we punting the ball down 11 points with 3 minutes left? I think it was the third quarter.
hmm
When you have Chris Boswell, granted he missed an extra point. Nobody's perfect. I mean, Justin Tucker's even missed extra point or an extra point before. I think it was a 57-yard field goal, but I think Boswell's career long is 59, if I'm not mistaken. Why not, even if you miss the field goal? Like, I think the
yeah,
analytics say, it's better to at least attempt it because what do you have to lose? Because, the ball, Presley Harvin shanked it for like 20 or 25 yards. So, I don't understand. That was like really my blood was boiling then. I don't know about you, Jay. What'd you think about
yeah.
that?
Because I mean, you're not even really getting good net field position when you do that. So that's frustrating. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think they should have gone for the field goal with Boswell. I mean, he's one of the best kickers, and it's just very conservative, I think. It surprised me. Yeah, very conservative, I think. Tomlin wanting to play defense, but the defense was kind of getting gashed even before that. So I thought they'd try and keep the momentum going with the offense.
Yeah, I was surprised. It's like even the announcers, the commentators were like, "What?" Like it's football now is about aggression. Kickers. I mean, back in the day, weren't hitting over like 50 yards, but now it's like kickers are expected to hit like 55 or below. I mean, 50 anything above, I think 55. If you miss it, it sucks, but like it's far. But like, I mean, 57 yards, and you have one of the best kickers in the league. Chris Boswell. I think he was
hmm
22 of 25 on field goals this year, and I think he was perfect on PATs until that game where he missed it. But Tomlin, I think after he saw that missed PAT, and I start to wonder if Boswell made that PAT, would he have went for the field goal, or do you think he still would have played conservative football and punted it away? That's something to think about as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that affected him or not, but either way, I think Boswell's been one of the best kickers in the league this year. That was, like you said, that was his only missed extra point, and I think he had two misses total on the year.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, I would have gone for the long field goal, and that would have made it a one-score game and put the pressure back on the Colts.
And that game was tough. The story of the Steelers, Big Ben said, the Steelers tradition, it seems like it's kind of faded. And he's not talking about the defense because, they still have TJ, Cam, Minka, even Joey Porter Jr. and Landon Roberts. Shout out to him, by the way, leads the team in total tackles. Very solid signing. Really hope we keep him around. But it's been on that offense. Like the only players I've seen really step up are Jalen Warren. Deontay Johnson's risen to the occasion. Pat Fryermuth had a really good game. I think he had like 10 or 9 catches for like 120 yards or something a couple weeks ago. But other than that, I haven't seen much on the offense. I know Samulu, the guard we got from the Eagles, he's been very solid. And James Daniels, like you said, has been decent. And Broderick Jones is a rookie. I think give him time. But Mason Cole and Dan Moore, I have not been impressed with. Dan Moore gets beat on play in, play out, and Mason Cole has been having some problems snapping the ball, and it's like this is stuff you cannot be messing up with playoff implications on the line in December. And it happened a couple weeks ago, and when it's not the offense, then it's the special teams. Boswell missing that extra point, and I feel like the Steelers, they beat themselves because they very well could have beaten the Colts or at least made it like a one-score game, but the turnovers, Najee fumbling that ball. You can't fumble the
Hmm.
ball, especially with Mitch Trubisky in at QB, who's already a
Yeah, I
liability.
mean, he never fumbles. I mean, it's
Yeah,
rare to see.
it is. And it's such, it's always, the Steelers, it's, if the bad players are finally playing good, then then it seems like the good players are the people who tend to be good. Just, there's always something going wrong, it feels like, with this team, beating themselves, because they're a very talented roster. Um, but they're just lacking in leadership and coaching, because Matt, even if you look at it, I have a thing pulled up here from on Instagram by NFL on CBS, and this is very interesting. Before firing Matt Canada, the Steelers are 6-4, 16.6 points per game, and when they fired Canada, they're 1-3. And granted, they played two-win teams, not like they played the best teams in the league when they fired Canada. I mean, they've won the first game without him, and then they've lost 3 in a row since, and they've only had 14.2 points per game. Now, here's something that's Steelers fan base is split on. Um, is Canada the scapegoat? Is Canada the reason this offense was bad, or are we even worse without him? What do you think, Jay?
I think it's tough to know like what the system is. I mean, it's hard to know just from watching the game. I mean, yeah, I think they're probably calling the same plays. It could still be Canada's system, but I mean, yeah, I think it's tough to know as a fan. Like, is it the talent on the field or is it the offensive play calling? I think it's hard to know if it's the offensive play calling because, yeah, you don't really know. But I think we do need to get a new system on offense to help the players succeed better.
I agree, and I think as of right now, it's been the conservative play calling that Mike Tomlin's had has made some of the players frustrated. Boswell was furious when Tomlin sent him back to the sideline because he went out to the field to go kick that field goal, and then Tomlin's like, "Nope, get back here," and then he goes to the sideline, and Boswell looked very frustrated. Presley Harvin comes on the field, and Presley Harvin's had some good games, but he's been struggling as of late. Having some bad punts. Earlier this year, though, he was really solid. Um, but yeah, and I think the players are starting to get frustrated with the coaching staff. And then when your players and coaching staff are so separated, then it feels like, you know, who's going to play for who? Because now you don't really want to play to win for your coaches if they're not going to trust you to make big plays, And I mean, there was a play where George Pickens, I think Mitch Trubisky threw it up and people were mad. I posted on my account at least, saying what was that throw by Mitch? But at the same time, George Pickens has got to, make a play on that ball. We've seen a lack of effort from him. And, I think the Steelers need to have more competition, as Mike Tomlin said, sparring. I think he said that in the preseason. He wants to see his guys spar the starters, and why not put Calvin Austin out there? I mean, obviously, I think keep Deontay Johnson out there. He's been playing solid and he's been showing effort. I know he had that one play that was awful where he almost walked off the field when the Steelers had a turnover, but George Pickens has just not been great this year. I think he liked something on social media and was posting some weird stuff, after the Steelers losses. And that shows immaturity, man. And I think Ben said it well. This isn't the Pittsburgh Steelers team we know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Deontay's been good though. He's a hard worker. I think he has helped keep up the Steeler way. I mean, last year he had one touchdown or no touchdowns,
Right.
but he kept working and he he didn't complain. He wasn't complaining on social media. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think Pickens after like you said he got mossed by the defender
No,
or he
yeah.
let him take it away.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he had a chance at that ball. I don't think it was all on Trubisky, and he's been asking for the ball. He's been wanting the ball, and he had his chance. So, and I think his frustration was right after that play, from what I saw. So,
Yeah.
I
And
think maybe a little more discipline would help.
I think you could say one thing and complain like that, but then to show that kind of effort, Pickens is one of the best players with one-on-one deep down the field, but when you have plays like that where you're not showing effort, it's like we're not going to take shots at you, man, down the field. We're going to just keep throwing it to Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth because those are guys who will catch the ball, keep their head down, and stay humble and play how the Steelers play football. Even when Deontay Johnson had that season where he had a lot of drops, people were calling him Deontay Dropson. I heard that a lot, and I still believed in him. He's a hard worker. Grit, iron, blood, sweat, and tears. To play in this league, it takes a lot. And I've been very impressed with how he's come back this year and bounced back. After having no touchdowns last year. Granted, the quarterbacks, the Steelers are like in almost the bottom of the league with the QB room, but I think it all starts with attitude,
Mhm.
like you said, Jay, and it just hasn't been there for the Steelers team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they need to get back to maybe an identity of running the football,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, because that was working against the Cardinals. I saw right before the Cardinals started beating them. When Kenny Pickett was still in the game, they were running the ball well, and I feel like they've gotten away from that on this losing streak.
Yeah, and one thing that was again questionable, you wonder was it a QB audible? I don't think it was an audible, but 4th and 2, and we're throwing a Hail Mary to like go route to Deontay Johnson down the sideline or whatever, and instead of running it with our running backs, we're a run heavy team. The Steelers are known for running the football and the steel curtain defense, and 4th and 2, and that's when we choose to throw the ball. Not on 2nd and 21 or whatever it was yesterday. That's when we want to run the ball. We don't want to run it on you know, 4th and 2 when it kind of makes more sense. I mean, I don't know. It's like it's very questionable, and it's not like, if we had like the Eagles offensive line and it's 2nd and 21, I get it, if you want to run the ball, but we have one of the most struggling offensive lines in the league, and our center's been a problem, and there's a lot of liabilities, and it makes zero sense this play calling or I mean, they're being set up for failure with these play calls, but at the same time, the coaches aren't going to go on the field and put on shoulder pads and a helmet. They're going to try to help set you up. But at the same time, Mitch Trubisky's got to play good football, and I don't see him getting a contract renewed in Pittsburgh. I'd be shocked if he did.
Mhm.
I believe this is his 2nd year in his contract. So I think after this year, he's a free agent, if I'm not mistaken. Um, or maybe it's next year. I can't remember.
Yeah,
But
I think next year.
yeah, next year. So, he won't be around hopefully for too much longer, but I'm okay if the Steelers want to keep Mason Rudolph around at QB3 because you want to know what? If he can come in for a game and scrap by and get us a win, so be it. But we definitely have to draft some kind of quarterback, and it all starts with this coaching staff. I was shocked when they split the role of offensive coordinator. It was really confusing when the stories broke out about who was going to be the guy calling the plays because you have QB coach Mike Sullivan, and then you have I think Eddie Faulkner is how you say his name, the running backs coach.
Mhm.
Um, and you wonder, there's a guys within the organization. Should the Steelers, this offseason start looking at getting Brian Flores back? I know you were mentioning that earlier. Brian Flores, getting rid of Terrell Austin and bringing in Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator because he's such a good coach, and a lot of guys would like to play for him.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have Flores, but I think it would have been easier if they just kept him when he was with the Steelers as the senior defensive assistant. Because now, I mean, he's kind of turned the Vikings defense around. They were one of the worst defenses last year, so I think he's doing great things, and I would have loved to have seen him here in Pittsburgh, really, because Terrell Austin, I think there's more talent on the defense. I mean, they can do more, I think, with the talent that they have.
Yeah,
So, yeah, and Flores, I've seen him turn one of the worst defenses around, so I think maybe he should have had a chance to stay.
I think so too. And um, Matt Canada obviously had way less to work with on offense than Terrell Austin did with defense, but I think for what Terrell Austin has on defense, they haven't been playing that like as great. Like, I think if you put Brian Flores there as the defensive coordinator, watch this defense come back and be like top 3. We get Brian Flores as defensive coordinator, I think we could be a top 5 defense again in this league. But it's been our secondary that's kind of been holding us back, and the running defense as well. Those guys up front getting gassed because they're on the field all game, but. You have T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick. You have the talent there. Joey Porter Jr. You have some very solid stars, on that team, and Landon Roberts, some good depth players, Cole Holcomb, who'll be back next year, hopefully, after that injury. But with some coaches are carried by talent, and I think, Terrell Austin most certainly is with this defensive team. And He's had some questionable schematics on the field for sure. That's kind of made me scratch my head while we're playing man to man sometimes when we should be playing zone, and why are we
Mhm.
blitzing when we should be playing more soft and trying to protect the field, and there's been some questionable calls by him.
Yeah, I mean, Flores, what I've seen him doing this year is a lot of blitzing and aggressiveness, and reminds me of like what Dick LeBeau did with the Steelers. And I would have just loved to have seen that him with the talent that we have on defense. But I mean, yeah, I don't think there's much he can do now. But
Yeah. It's unfortunate, because um Brian Flores, I think if the Steelers offered him, I mean, he might even get a head coaching opportunity, in a couple years or even next year, if teams are interested in looking at him. But if not, I think the Steelers should really try to get him again and part ways with Terrell Austin because he's just, with this talent on this team, he's not getting the job done on defense.
yeah, I mean, the run defense, like I said, getting gashed, and I don't understand it because they just drafted Keanu Benton in the second round, who's actually been really good as a rookie. You have Cameron Hayward. I mean, you've got good talent, I feel like. I don't know why the run
Even Larry
defense is
Ogunjobi
struggling.
too.
Yeah, Ogunjobi, I don't know why it's struggling the way it
I,
is.
And I think it's like what you said before, the injuries to the inside linebackers, because those are guys who are going to have to help stop the run. Because TJ Watt's on the outside, playing defensive end, sometimes playing linebacker, trying to rush the quarterback, and he makes big plays. He had 2 sacks, but when you're down to Michael Walker, and shout out to him, he's trying his best, but he's been kind of struggling this year and getting kind of cooked on a few plays. And we lost Quan Alexander, Cole Holcomb. Um, and even like a few years ago, imagine Shazier never get hurt, how he would be on this team. He was really really good linebacker for
Mhm.
this organization. Um, and it's just unfortunate because we just haven't had really a good middle reliable linebacker since like Lawrence Timmons, I believe it's been. He was such a solid player for this team, and even James Ferrier a while back. Some really good
Yeah,
guys for this team, but now it just feels like we get a guy and then they just get hurt and then they go become a free agent, and then we kind of are stuck with some second or third string guys starting for us.
yeah. I mean, the talent is there, but I mean, besides the secondary, I think there are some holes that need to be filled there. But yeah, I
Absolutely.
mean, spend the money better. Maybe not. Don't give Trubisky such a big contract and fix up that secondary.
Yeah. I guess I'll ask you right now if you're, you know, within the Steelers organization, you're making the calls, let's say you're the owner or general manager, what are you doing first? Are you like what's your top priority right now with this team? If you got to make a change right now, like your top priority, would it
My
be
top my top
yeah,
priority would be the offensive line. I mean, you have Mason Cole, who, like you said, hasn't been great, and center I think is just a crucial position. Like having that quarterback and center chemistry of that duo that we saw many years with Ben Roethlisberger, Marquise Pouncey. That's very important, and I think Kenny Pickett could use that. Broderick Jones, I think he's been good for a rookie, and I like the energy that he brings. I think he'll be on this offensive line for a long time. And I think they're getting pieces, but yeah, I would focus on that offensive line and getting a great center because that is a crucial position right in the middle of the offensive line.
I agree totally, and you couldn't have said it better because it doesn't matter who you get calling those plays if your offensive line is collapsing like a second or two after a play starts. Doesn't matter if you have Patrick Mahomes back there, or whoever, because you've seen it. Even like when the Chiefs had a bad line a few years ago in that Super Bowl when they played the Bucks, he had no time to throw the ball. It was literally a
Hmm.
play. I think they added it to Madden where like if you fall, you can like kind of still throw the ball or whatever because his line was so bad. Like, and offensive line is so important. And I think, and I think this is I think the offensive line is more important than who you have running the football because you can have the best running back there. If you don't have, CMC or Barry Sanders, like any or the bus, really good guys like that. If you just have an average running back, it doesn't matter who you have on that offensive line. If or who you have at the running back position, because if your line can't block, you're getting hit by 5 or 6 guys, and you're gonna get taken down. And you got to win in the trenches. That's how you win football games, especially in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had Broderick Jones come in, and I think a lot of people might have been surprised that he's not at left tackle because I think that's what people were expecting when he was drafted. He would come in at left tackle and replace Dan Moore,
Yeah.
but instead it was Chikuma Okorafor. And
And it's
I
been
mean,
oh, go ahead.
I think for the Steelers, I think they wanted to do that to get bigger guys and just get the run game going. I think that's why.
And I think another thing too, Chucks was saying some stuff about the offense. I think he was like frustrated after one game, and that's why he got benched because he was saying some stuff, and Tomlin or the offensive coordinators didn't really appreciate it. But I think honestly, right now, if you want this line to succeed with who you have, move Broderick Jones to left tackle. Obviously, start Sumulu or Isaac Sumalo, however you say his name. Um, Figure out a center. I don't know what we're gonna do at center. Obviously, keep James Daniels in and put Chucks in over Dan Moore at right tackle. Like I think Dan Moore should be second string right now. Why not try putting Chucks back in? Because I feel like, Broderick should definitely start. He's a rookie. This is the perfect time for him to learn because it's not like we're on a Super Bowl run right now where we can't be making those mistakes. We're struggling right now. So if we're seeing some kind of improvements from him, this is like, the stakes are kind of lower for him to get a starting job because, it's not like we're a playoff heavy team right now that's going to go far. And I think this would be a good time for him to learn from his mistakes, especially. I think it's great we're starting him, but I think Chucks should be starting over Dan Moore Jr. for sure.
Yeah, and I think having him at that left tackle spot could be better for the future because then he's protecting Pickett's blind side, which
Yeah,
I think is just a more valuable position. So maybe get him some more experience there.
yeah, and especially because you've seen Kenny, he's gotten hurt like 3 or 4 times already. He's had a couple concussions, that ankle injury he got surgery on. Um, and it's because this line, even when Ben was back there, he was getting bruises. He said his ribs were turning like purple and even black from getting hit so hard. The bruises and it sucks because he was and people were saying, oh, Ben's old, we need new players, but a new QB. I remember people saying that towards the end of Ben's career, but you know, I miss Ben, man. Like Ben was playing better than who we've had, as of late at QB, and obviously the best Steelers quarterback of all time, without a doubt, statistically. And it's the offensive line, because it doesn't matter who you put in there, like we said before, because it's been a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe fans weren't as appreciative as they should have been with Ben, and
Yeah.
then maybe we saw the same thing happen again with Pickett. I know he's not the same Hall of Fame level quarterback, of course, but I mean, he was taking care of the football, and I think maybe people didn't really realize that until Trubisky came in.
Yeah, I think now, I mean, at least now we can. I'm glad we don't have to keep saying Money Mitch. Obviously it's like for the meme or
Hmm.
whatever, but like it's shown Mitch is not our guy. Like I would be surprised if I saw Mitch starting somewhere else. Like I think he gets released from the Steelers. Maybe he gets signed as like a third string QB, or he's done because what teams have seen from him, he's just like you have these guys. Joe Flacco is playing better than Mitch Trubisky, and Joe Flacco, uh, you know, former really good quarterback for the Ravens. I think he was on the Jets for a little bit too. And he's playing some good football now. Shout out to him. Obviously, I don't like the Browns, but he's playing really good ball. You have to show respect where
Hmm.
respect's at. And even the Bengals, Jake Browning has been playing really, really good. Really good football. They're drug testing him, I believe, today after his overtime win. Because how I saw that, I thought that was kind of funny. But excuse me. But it's crazy seeing all these other QBs that are backups coming in and they're playing better than Kenny. I hate to say it, and Mitch too. It makes you think why can't we go out and get guys like that?
Yeah, I mean, with that, I think maybe you have to think, is it a bigger issue within the system? Is it just the quarterback or is it your offensive system, really? That's what I think it is.
Yeah,
And I mean, they could also move from Mitch to Mason, but that's another thing where they're gonna have to admit basically that they messed up, right? Because they're giving Mitch that big contract. He's one of the highest paid backups. So I mean, it took them 2.5 years to fire Canada. So they're a prideful organization. They don't want to admit like we messed up, but that might be what they have to do, moving from Mitch to Mason as well.
and I think you said it best, Jay. I think this organization that's something they need to improve upon. Saying you know instead of Mike Tomlin going out there and saying we'll reflect and play better next week, instead of saying that, we need to be like we messed up with personnel. We don't have the best guy calling plays for our offense. We don't have you know the best play callers on offense on the field, like on our quarterbacks. And That's tough to say, but I think this, like you said, this organization is afraid to admit their mistakes sometimes, and it's okay to be prideful, and want to, they're one of the most successful franchises in NFL history, top two up there with the Patriots, um, but it's very frustrating to see, such a good team with a loyal fan base go through these struggles because they're afraid to admit their mistakes. And I even think sometimes too they're too cheap to hire with outside because they can get guys cheaper within the organization. Is another argument I've seen, and I'm kind of agreeing with it, because obviously people from outside the organization are going to be more expensive than guys who are already there because the guys that are already there, they want to get those higher up positions, and they'll probably tell the GM or Art Rooney, the owner, we'll take lower pay, something like that. I mean, that's just something I'm speculating. It's not
Mhm.
confirmed or anything, but I think hiring someone outside the organization is definitely more expensive, and it's more of a risk too.
Yeah, more a risk, and I think they just like the Steeler culture. They have that Steeler experience. But yeah, I think for the next offensive coordinator, I would like to see them go outside the organization and get someone new, whoever it is.
I agree, and I think we should keep what's our special teams coach name again?
Danny Smith.
Danny Smith. I like Danny Smith personally. I think he's good. I think we need to keep him around. I like what he brings to that special teams unit. Miles Killebrew, on defense he's not great, but on special teams that dude's a stud. He's like
Hmm.
what Matthew Slater is for the Patriots. He's like one of the, he's always going to that Pro Bowl for the special teams, but um he's so good. And even Connor Hayward stepping up big time. I know he had a few fouls or whatever, a few penalties last game, but he had that huge block that got the Steelers, right in the red
Yeah,
zone. The offense almost sold and didn't score, but as a liability. But I like what he brings. But I think, like you said, new offensive coordinator outside the organization and a new defensive coordinator outside the organization, and Brian Flores. You think that's like the best guy for the job we have? If he doesn't get hired as or a head coach anywhere else, or a better defensive coordinator, high paying position anywhere else, I think the Steelers need to bite the bullet and spend some of those, funds that they have to get these guys instead of trying to hold on, and hire within the organization. I think it's just a problem
yeah,
year in and year out.
yeah. I mean, will they get rid of Terrell Austin though? I mean, make a change at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. I don't know.
I'd be
I mean, they
shocked.
don't like to make changes as it is, but yeah, I mean, it's something I would like to see, and I think they should think about it.
I think so too. And this being my first episode, I know this is random and out of nowhere, but Jay, who's your all time favorite Steelers player? That's what I like to ask everybody. Who's gonna be on my episodes? Who's your all time favorite Steelers player and why?
My favorite all-time Steeler is Troy Polamalu because when I
Oh,
was a
good
lot
pick.
younger, I loved seeing him flying around the defense with that hair.
Oh yeah, and he mastered the art of blocking those extra points. You know what I'm saying? They literally had
Hmm.
to
Yeah,
they had to ban that because he mastered the art, and was pushing like the long snappers down and like jumping over them. And man, he was good. I feel like we kind of did him dirty towards the end of his career, kind of forcing him into retirement. But he
yeah,
wasn't as great towards the end of his career. But one of the best safeties of all time.
yeah. He made me the Steelers fan that I am today.
That's fair. He's such a good guy. Actually, I dressed up for him for Halloween back in the day. I think I was in like second or third grade. I had Head and Shoulders shampoo because
Yeah, with the
that's he's
commercial.
on the commercial. Yeah, and I had a black wig, curly wig, the Palomalu hair, and I had his jersey on. It was one of my favorite Halloween costumes I did. He's the definition of what it is to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Hard hitter,
Yeah,
fast. Um, and he was a natural too. He was naturally gifted at football and he was disciplined. And I never heard anything about Palomalu complain. I mean, obviously, maybe within the locker room sometimes, but I never heard him make scenes, And I'll be honest, man, I miss Bill Cowher. I miss his hot head, how he would get. I mean, we need somebody like that with the players who's going to get in their face and say, I'm not taking your crap, man, And I feel like Tomlin's he's more passive when it comes to talking to the players, but I know there's a lot of guys who do want to play for Mike Tomlin.
yeah. That's just his style, I guess. Troy Polamalu was soft spoken, but a beast on the field. It reminds me of T.J. Watt right now. How he's so soft spoken, and then he's an animal on the field.
Dude, I like that. I like that comparison. Dude is insane on the field. But when he gets off the field, he's like, with his brother JJ Watt. There was a video of him at I think when they were playing the Texans. He was with JJ Watt and JJ Watt's wife and JJ Watt's baby or whatever, and it was like wholesome. And then he gets on the field and he's getting 3 sacks a game, and a
Yeah.
touchdown. Dude's a beast. But how about right now, current Steelers player on the roster? Who's your favorite guy?
TJ Watt. Yep, the guy I just said.
Oh yeah, no, that's a
That's
good
why.
pick. Yeah, no, TJ, without a doubt, TJ's our best player, and he's my favorite too. And um, all time, it's really hard to pick a Steelers player. I really wish I got to grow up watching Mean Joe Green. He was a beast. He's him and those older guys. Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Mel Blount. Rod Woodson. Those are some guys. Um, but yeah, and speaking of Rod Woodson, you saw that Caleb Williams Instagram story. He says he's rocking it like Woodson. I don't want to start anything. Maybe he's just a fan of
Yeah.
Woodson, but uh, he could come to Pittsburgh, man. We wouldn't be too opposed to
Yeah, I know that's what the fans want, but I don't think just him wearing the
that.
jersey is going to get him here. I mean, you got to have a high draft pick. Just
No, yeah.
yeah,
It was cool. It was cool to see though. Cool to see him repping, the
yeah,
black
it
and
was
gold. It looks
cool.
good on
Yeah,
him. um, but no, realistically, first round, if you're the Steelers, is there any? I mean, have you been looking at any draft prospects? Like, I'm not sure where the Steelers will be picking right now, but who would you want the Steelers to draft first round? If you could pick any player, the Steelers find a way to get like, let's say, whatever pick, who do you want them to take in this draft class, first round?
I was thinking the person you said, the center from Georgia.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's hard to say this early, where they're going to be drafting and everything. But yeah, I think center would be my highest priority, like I said. And they've had success going to Georgia and finding players there. So I think that could be something they look at.
and I believe he played with Broderick Jones. I could be mistaken. At Georgia, I'm not sure if they were there together, but I would assume so. Obviously, I don't know. I need to look more into
Mhm.
college football. Big fan of. I mean, Georgia's a really good team. I'm a Bama guy personally, but I think that'd be awesome to have two guys from Georgia. Broderick Jones would be a second year guy, and you bring in a center from there. And could you imagine that chemistry? You put Broderick Jones at left
Yeah.
tackle, protecting Kenny's blind spot. You have a center who can snap the ball, and do his job, his due diligence, and Sumulu, and James Daniels, and even Chucks could start another year. Why not? Or maybe draft another tackle. But I think center, like you said, has got to be a top priority
Yeah. I mean,
for
that'd
this
be
team.
cool to see. I mean, we'd have, I think, three Georgia guys on offense then.
We
Pickens,
would,
Jones, and the center.
and we'd have if we keep Najee Harris, we'd have a Bama guy too, and um, I think something that's also interesting is to look at the entire 2022 NFL draft class. It's been one of the most disappointing draft classes in recent memory that I can think of. I can't you look at, the 2017
Mhm.
class was stacked, the 2020 class had some really good players, 2019 class, but then you look at the 2022 class might be one of the worst draft classes I think I've ever seen in a long time.
For the Steelers or just in general?
Just in general, just like the
Oh,
league in
okay.
general.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
it was
mean,
it was rough, especially QBs.
yeah, yeah, for sure. There definitely weren't a lot of quarterbacks, but I think the Steelers got decent value at least with where they were getting Pickett. Because I mean, no matter what people say, I know some people think they reached, but I think it was okay value at least from where they were picking. And I thought someone at the top might reach for Pickett since I think he was the top quarterback in that draft.
Yeah, because you look
But
at
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I think they got good value at least picking Pickett there.
I think so too. And that QB class is one of the worst in recent memory. But Pickett was the best guy there, and I remember Malik Willis was a name. We heard from Liberty coming up, and then there was some other guys I can't remember. But yeah, the draft class just wasn't as great. But the Steelers had good picks for what the class was. And I feel like they got good value from that class overall. And I'm really glad. Um, the Chase Claypool trade for Joey Porter Jr. might be one of the best trades we've had in recent memory because
Oh yeah,
he was causing more trouble for the team, poor effort. I mean, that play where he celebrated against the Vikings when the clock was running, really, not to bring up the past, but that was, come on, man. Come on, man moment. But and I think the Steelers, Omar Khan, the con artist, they call him, Steelers by Joey calls him. Shout out to him. Um, I think he's a good GM. Kevin Colbert was also really good, for a while. I just got to give this team time, to get some guys, and it starts at the top.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they draft well. That's what they do. So I think moving forward, that's what they got to continue to do. Just get more pieces in place. If they continue to do a good job with that, I mean, I think we'll be headed in the right direction.
I think absolutely. And I think to end off this podcast, I want to ask you about our next upcoming games, our next 3 games. I mean, obviously, anything can happen. Our next game at home against the 8-6 Cincinnati Bengals, 4:30 Eastern Standard Time on NBC. Obviously, right now we don't look like a team that can beat them. But what do you think's gonna happen that game? I mean, anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. I mean, I hope we can get Pickett. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that would be huge. But these Bengals, they're not. I don't think they're the same Bengals team that we played last time. They've gotten a lot better, I think, with Jake Browning and they're starting to build some chemistry. So it's going to be tougher, I think, now.
they aren't. The crazy thing is too, when Joe Burrow comes back, I think teams are gonna be reaching out to get Jake Browning. I don't like. I think teams are gonna be like, can we have Jake Browning, please? And I don't think the Bengals have the kind of cap to pay him what he'll probably want because he's playing really good. And I think he could be starting for some of these other teams. I mean, the Steelers could even use him right now, man. I mean, with Kenny Pickett out,
Mhm.
and he's a very, very solid guy. But the next week on the 31st, we play at Seattle. They're 6-7 right now, on Fox 405. What do you expect from that game?
Well, we'll see Devin Bush again, and he's
Oh
been
yeah.
laughing at the Steelers. He's had some comments about our struggles, but yeah, hopefully we can beat him. And they say Pickett should definitely be back by that week, hopefully. I mean, Pickett, I think he's shown some toughness. He was playing through a rib injury, so he's tough, I think. Hopefully he's back. And yeah, I mean, Seattle's looking like a good team too. It's not going to be an easy schedule, but yeah, and then the Ravens. I mean, if we're
Oh,
not
those
in it, I
Ravens.
hope we can still beat them and break their hearts at least.
If we can get the brooms, I mean, if we don't make the playoffs, say whatever, but man, if we could say we swept the Baltimore Ravens, man, because Lamar Jackson, I think he plays in his career the worst against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think his QBR is
Yeah,
like in the 60s. He's awful against the Steelers. TJ Watt has his number. Minka Fitzpatrick's been a stud against him. Obviously, that entire defensive front. And knowing the Steelers, I feel like this is crazy, but I feel like we beat the Ravens, even though we lost to two-win teams. I feel like that's the Steeler way.
yeah. I
I
mean,
really,
it's always close. It's always close when we play the Ravens, no matter what.
yeah, no, but we could have, we could be 0-16, and it'd be like a 3-score game at the end against the
Yeah,
Baltimore Ravens. We always those games are always, it's my favorite rivalry in the AFC by far because in history the Browns have been kind of bad, the Bengals as well, but the Ravens have been a really solid team. Lamar's having a really decent year, and they lost. I believe J.K. Dobbins got hurt again. So they're
yeah,
playing, some guys. I believe I picked up the running back in fantasy because I needed some depth for the bench. But this AFC North is stacked, man. This year, it's definitely one of the best divisions in football, and if not the best. The worst team's 500, and I think in the NFC South, like the best team is like 6-7 right now or something like that. So it sucks,
yeah. That's us
but
in last now. And the
yeah,
Steelers haven't finished last in their division since I think it was 1988.
before I was born, way before my time.
Yeah, yeah,
It's crazy too because we've been so lucky with Ben on our roster and um having some great coordinators you know along the way. But these last 3 games, the Ravens game still to be determined what time on Sunday, January 7th. But anything can happen. There actually, it's crazy. There's still a way the Steelers can finish as the first seed in the AFC. Obviously, it's not going to happen, but
yeah,
it's anything. I like the chances. I like the like point zero whatever percent chances it could happen. I think that's funny, and it's cool. I love football. I'm really passionate. I care about this team. Um, and I want to see nothing more than see them succeed, but it's frustrating, and I'm not going to defend bad play. If they're playing bad, you got to hold these guys who are making millions accountable because I think that's something these athletes forget sometimes is when they get criticized by journalists or, people at the post-game press conferences, they get angry. But at the same time, man, you're making millions of dollars. Like, you need to be doing your job. If not, we'll find somebody else to pay millions to do it because you ain't getting it done.
yeah. I mean, I think the fans have a right to be frustrated right now with the way the team's playing.
Absolutely, and I think the future of this team, people are saying we need to clean the house. I don't think we need to clean the entire house. I think obviously, we should keep TJ Watt. He's a big part of this
Hmm.
team, but at the same time, he deserves to be on a team that can compete for a Super Bowl. but I love him in the black and gold. I hope he stays here. But if he ever went somewhere else, I wish him nothing but the best and to obviously win. I think we got to keep guys like him, Cam, Minka, Deontay Johnson, Jalen Warren. Najee, if he improves, keep him. But if not, if he costs a lot, if he wants a lot, get rid of him, because we need to save cap for,
Yeah.
more important stuff like the line.
Yeah,
Definitely
you have
keep that.
Warren too.
Yeah, we do got Warren, and we got to keep that Eagles guard too because he's been really solid. Our guards have not really been as high of a liability this year as tackle and center. And tackle, obviously center is important because they snap the ball every play, but I'd argue tackle is the most important position on that on line because all these edge rushers now that are top picks, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, you need to have someone who could stop them, and the 49ers have some good tackles. The Eagles have, the tush push, which is another interesting thing, but tackles is like one of the most is like top 5, even top 3, I'd say most important position in football right now because the way these edge rushers are playing, you need to have somebody to stop them.
Yeah, absolutely. Though there are a lot of premier edge rushers right now, but if we get the tackles fixed, I mean, I don't think we're as far away as some people think. I mean, we're still a 500 team. I know we're collapsing right now in December. It's not a good
Yeah.
time to play this type of football, but I mean, I don't think we're as far away as some people think. I mean, I think some of it's just frustration and saying you want to clean house, but no, I don't think that's the way to go. I think
Yeah,
just get a few pieces. We're drafting well. Just move forward with that.
I think so too. And I guess to end this off, I want to ask you, what do we end the season? What's our record? Just a prediction as of right now. Obviously, anything can happen. Injuries happen. The team can improve and shock us, or they can keep declining. What do you see the Steelers ending this season off at?
I want to say 10-7. If Pickett comes back, I want to say 10-7. I don't know. I mean, 9-8 would be more of a safe guess, but I'm gonna go with a hot take and say 10-7. They win out
10-7.
and make the playoffs.
Hey, I like it, man. That's wishful thinking. I like it. I think honestly, call me crazy. I think we beat the Bengals, we beat the Ravens. I think we barely lose to the Seahawks. I think we go 9-8, and we scrape by and barely get in the playoffs. That's what I think. But I can't. Would we have to win out to get in? I feel like we could still get in at 9-8 if
Yeah,
other
I think
stuff
it's
happens.
gonna be a maybe. I think it's gonna depend on how other teams and how it plays out.
I mean, the Broncos losing last night was huge for us. Thanks to shout out to Jared Goff and Sam Laporta, who's on my fantasy team. Shout out to him.
3
Big win.
touchdowns.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the Lions, man. They've been bad for so long. I like the Bears are actually my second favorite team in the league, but I respect the Lions a lot too. They've been bad for so long. It's really great to see them doing well. But 10-7, 9-8. Man, I like that. I really don't see us having a losing season under Coach T. Got to keep that streak going of a non-losing season.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But I know some fans, I feel like just want it to go
Yeah.
just so he doesn't have that streak continue. But I mean, I still want to win and make the playoffs, though. I mean, I never want to give up on the season.
Me too. I want to. We make the playoffs. We get bounced round 1. So be it. Fans want a better draft pick, but I think they're forgetting we can trade up in the draft. I want to see us. Don't let your foot off the gas. Don't give up. And see where the rest of the season takes us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But well, Jay, thanks for joining me. Everyone, go check out his Instagram and follow him at Steelers Loyalty. This is Brennan with the Steel News, and Jay, thanks for joining for episode 1. It was great having you.
Thank you.
And take care, guys, and tune in next week after next week's game. Take care.